it's Patrick. So now I'm going to teach you the knit and purl stitches, which are the two most common stitches in knitting. Every other knitting technique is kind of a permutation of the knit and purl stitches. Even the knit and purl stitches are very similar. One is just the other in reverse. So once you learn them, you kind of have a pretty good grasp on the basics of knitting. So today I have my aluminum knitting needles. They are really long and kind of hard to use, but hopefully they are sufficiently clicky for you. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so we have our yarn, and I have this pair of aluminum knitting needles. It is size 10.5, 6.5 millimeters. So I'm going to start by making a slip knot. And I'll go ahead and put that on one of the needles. And I'll cast on a few stitches. And just to show you another kind of cast on method, I will do what's called knitting on. So to do that, you put your needle from left to right through the loop on the needle. You wrap the yarn around and then draw off that loop and put it onto the needle. And we're in cabling on. You would then put your needle in between the two stitches. To knit on, you're just gonna put it through the first loop. And then pull it up and onto the needle. Again. Through the loop. Wrap the yarn. Put it on the needle. So now we have our stitches on our needle, and I will show you how to knit into them. So first I'll show you English style. So to do that, you put your right needle left to right through the first loop on the needle. Wrap your yarn, and then you're going to pull up that loop. Wrap the yarn. You're going to pull that loop through the other loop. And then put this one off this needle. And so we've knit one stitch. I'll show that again. And you're going to leave this one on the needle. So put the needle left to right through the first loop. Wrap the yarn, pull that loop around, and then lift it off the needle. And now we have two. Insert the needle, wrap the yarn, and slide it off. Insert the needle, wrap the yarn, and slide it off. And just do that all the way across. Insert the needle, wrap wrap the yarn and pull that loop through and slide it off. If I can show you closer. Insert the needle from left to right, wrap the yarn, and then pull that loop around and slide it off. And then we get to the last one, and then slide it off. And so now we have one complete row of stitches. And then we're gonna just turn it around and do the same thing over again. When you knit every row, that's called the stockinette stitch, or sorry, it's called the garter stitch. The garter pattern. You knit every row, and every time you reverse it, you will get knits on one side and purls on the other, because the knit stitch is the opposite of the purl stitch. So you can see that these stitches now have bumps on the back. They look like purl stitches, which I'll show you how to make later on. And so we're gonna just keep knitting this row. Just insert, wrap the yarn, and slide it off. And so there's 2 rows of knitting. You can see again that when you turn it around, there are these bumps along the stitches. Okay, so I'll do a couple rows showing you continental style now, which is another way to knit. I like this method because it's a lot faster and more comfortable, because I learned how to crochet first, and with crocheting you keep your yarn in your left hand, and with continental style knitting you have the yarn in your left hand, so I like it a lot better, and it's a lot faster too, so I'll show you how to do that. So go ahead, we'll knit the first stitch. So to knit continental, you wrap the yarn around your left hand, and then what you're going to do is insert the needle from left to right at the next stitch like normal, but now you're just going to scoop up a loop and slide it off. Insert the needle, pick up a loop of yarn from your left hand, and then slide the stitch off. And so you can see that when you get used to this method, knitting becomes a lot faster. Because you just end up scooping the yarn instead of moving your hand to throw the yarn around the needle. So I'll do one more row of that. always find it difficult to knit the first stitch Continental. So I always do it English first and then switch. Okay, so insert the needle left to right, do the first stitch, scoop up some yarn and slide it off. Okay, so now we have some rows of garter stitch. You can see each row has a little, every other row has a little bump. And if you stretch it out, you can see that there are rows of bumps along here, and then rows of little V's in between, right here. Okay, so now I'll show you how to purl. A purl stitch is the opposite of a knit stitch. It's just doing the same thing in reverse. And so once you learn how to knit and purl, then every other stitch is pretty much just a permutation of that. So to do a purl stitch, where before you would insert your needle from left to right, what we're going to do now is insert it from right to left. And then we're going to take our yarn and wrap it around counterclockwise, and then slide it off. And that's one purl stitch. So again, insert the needle from right to left, through the stitch, wrap the yarn counterclockwise, and then slide off the stitch. And so you can see now, the completed purl stitches have that bump, which we saw on the back of the knit stitches, because it is a knit stitch backwards. So finish the row. So you can see when we flip it around now, instead of bumps, we have V's. These are the bumps from before, and then right underneath here are V's. And on the back we have the bumps. So, I'm going to go ahead and knit this row, because you can see the V's here. Which means these are knit stitches. So if I now knit this row, then I will have matched them up, and we will have the same side stitches facing on each side. This is called a stockinette stitch, when you knit a row and then purl a row and then knit a row. So I'll go ahead and knit this row. So again, on the back back side, we see a bunch of V's. And on what is now the other side, we see rows of bumps. So now I'll show you how to purl Continental style. I think Purling Continental style is a little more difficult, and it's easy to get confused, but once you learn how to do it, it's pretty simple. So, again, like purling normally, you're going to insert the needle from right to left. I'm gonna move the yarn to my left hand. Okay, so we're going to, now the yarn is in front, whereas when we were knitting, the yarn was in back. When you purl, the yarn is in front. So insert the needle from right to left, wrap the yarn counterclockwise, and slide it off. Again, yarn in front. Insert the loop, or insert the needle. Wrap the yarn counterclockwise, and slide it off. Another reason why I like Continental style is that with the yarn in your left hand, you can easily switch from knitting to purling to knitting to purling by moving the yarn from front to back. So I can knit this stitch and then purl this stitch and knit this stitch and purl this one and knit and purl and knit and purl. You just have to remember that when you purl, you're not wrapping the yarn this way like that. You're going to wrap it this way, counterclockwise, not like that. Yep. And so you can see here, these are, when I alternated knitting, purling, knitting, purling, knitting, purling, all the purls have these bumps in the back. So that is the knit and purl stitch. When you learn how to do these, you pretty much mastered the basics of knitting.